All the topics that you guys talk about, whenever I go over to family events or whatever, they always get brought up somehow. And I don't even do it. I just go to hang out with them, and it turns into a hostile environment because of my views. And so my wife and I, we just withdrew from going to family events because it turns hostile. And I don't want to subject my wife or my kids to that kind of stuff. So what do you guys recommend how I can continue to go and engage and I guess like divert, because they're Catholics. They claim to be Catholics, but they're totally liberal in their way of thinking, and it just turns into a hostile environment.
I think you call Mike Adams because he'll sue them for you.
I don't do family law.
No?
So, just for the record.
I think part of it is your expectations. So if you go over with an expectation, so a lot of times I'm in these kinds of settings, and we talked about this a couple of the Fearless Faiths we've done in the past, where we talk about how you select juries, right? And the same thing happens here. When I'm selecting a jury, I don't put everyone on the panel. Some people are never going to hear the truth. I can spot those people, and the defense feels the same way. Some people are total homers for the prosecutor. They want to keep those people off the jury. So sometimes your family member are broad, different kinds of jury members. They are sometimes people, some of those people you're not going to reach. I know that. I know that if they're at the far extreme, that I've got to pray them to a position where they'll hear my voice anyway. And I think I can argue them to that position in an afternoon at a family event. But I do know that I can pray those people. Somebody prayed me into a position where I was actually willing to listen. For a lot of years, I wasn't that guy. And then someone prayed me into that guy. And then I would at least listen. So what we typically do is we don't spend a lot of time, if you're like me anyway, like you go home shaking your fist at what just happened, instead of going home and getting on your knees about what just happened. But if you'll do that, then you may move somebody from that outside category of the skeptic into somebody who's not quite sure you're right, but they're willing to listen. And then the next thing we have to do is remember that we taught you these tactics about questions for a reason. Now, I'll bet you if you go back in your memory and you remember those contacts you had with your family, you made a lot of claims, counterclaims to their claims at some point in the conversation. I want you now to have one time where you just test yourself and you never make a claim. You simply allow them and you ask them to defend their claim. What do you mean by that? Why do you think that's true? Because you'll find that sometimes you'll empty that out. What do you mean by that? And you'll realize they're kind of confused in their own thinking. And as they're trying to explain to you their confusion, they realize themselves that they're confused. And why do you think that's true? At some point, a lot of these folks will realize, well, I kind of accepted that blindly. Because when I'm asked to defend my position, I'm not able to do it. So I would say that maybe for the next time you guys meet, do not make a claim. Have a lower expectation, pray before you get there, and allow them to empty out their claims. And that means you've got to bite your lip. That's hard to do, right? Yeah. But I think at some point what was easier for me is realizing that I call these 4 categories of jurors, 1 through 4. 4s you never put on a jury because they're never going to believe you no matter what you do. And I've got family members that are 4s. And because I know they're 4s, I'm over it. What do I expect? I'm going to go there and make progress with a 4? No, a 4 is going to kick you and call you a name. So when the 4 calls me a name and kicks me, I'm like, well, duh. That's what I expected, right? What's happening is you're going thinking that your family is going to embrace your ideas. You're going to have a certain idea of family which doesn't exist for us. But if you would lower your expectation when you get there, then when a 4 acts like a 4, you're okay. Yeah, it may feel like the whole group is a 4. I get it, but that you'll feel a little better if you can get to that point.
You know what? I would approach your family just like I would approach the world that I live in, and that is a world that is hostile towards Christ. We know that, they know that, so it's not an arm wrestling contest. So for me personally, and this is just how I live my life, I don't want to go around, getting in arguments with people, but I will say, Lord, open up the door. We're going to have a family get together. The family's all hostile toward you. They know where I stand or where Lisa and I stand. So, Lord, they've asked us to come. We're going to go. And I'm going to ask you, Lord, I'm going to be civil. I'm going to be loving. I'm going to be kind. But, Lord, you open up the conversations. If you want something to happen, you're sovereign. You're awesome. God, you bring someone to us or to me. In the same token, I would not subject my wife or my kids to things that God has convicted you guys about in your standard of living, because that's not a good thing to do, and we've all had to live that, and to that one gentleman who asked the first question, I think it's just really important. If you notice what you asked, he asked the word about, or he said, how do we not come across forcing our views or our religion on somebody? That's the talking point of the opposite side. They want us to come across as though we're forcing our views on others. It's funny, when they force their views on us, they're not forcing their views on us. Have you noticed that? Well, don't let them get away with that kind of thinking. It's equal. Share your view. I'll share my view. Which one holds up to scrutiny? Which one is scientific? Or which one is biblically honoring? Or which one is, like Frank said, in alignment with the Constitution? It's very simple. If you would just hold lovingly the line, because sometimes as Christians, we, I think, have pulled back from the fight that God wants us to be in, thinking that we've got some mandate to be polite. I don't mean to be rude, but we surrender too soon. We need to be equipped and speaking the truth in love, but never retreat.
You know what's good about and the reason why I think we retreat is because retreating requires much less preparation.
That's true.
I mean, you can retreat without having to do any homework at all, without having to know your position at all.
Very true.
But if you're going to stand tall for your position, that means you're going to have to be equipped to do this in the public square, to be able to answer the questions. So I think what happens is we are just flat lazy.